Hello, everybody. Oops, hold on. Okay, I'm trying to change stuff up, but it's not working, so I'm not going to worry about it. Hey guys, I'm Brittany, real estate agent, coach, and investor, and I go live every Thursday at 3 p.m. to talk about real estate. So a lot of times I go onto ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT questions, and because no one asked, I give my response. I'm a real estate agent, coach, and investor, so I'm giving my response based on my experience, my knowledge, what I would do, and what I'm hearing around town. So today I went on, I'm in Southern California. So today I asked ChatGPT, let me share my screen. I'm sharing over on YouTube. So if you are on Instagram, head over to my YouTube, BrittanyHanduraRE, and you will be able to see my shared screen. Okay, so I'm asking, why are housing prices in California still rising even though people are leaving? So ChatGPT is telling me there are a couple of different factors. Number one, severe housing shortage. California has underbuilt housing for decades, especially in coastal cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego. Zoning restrictions, environmental reviews, and community opposition. NIMBYism, which is not in my backyard, slow development, keeping supply low. So basically, what you're hearing is we have lots of areas where people are really still wanting to come in, but we have people who are pushing back on. Oops, hold on. We have people who are pushing back on newer developments. And so when that happens, the the housing shortage is all the time going to be slowed down. And so because of that, you're not going to have as many people who are able to buy, even though you have people who are leaving, you still don't have enough housing for the people who are here or who are staying. So we have desirable areas and we have multiple desirable areas. So it's not just like one main city center. We have San Diego, LA, San Francisco, and all of these areas are places where you're going to have a lot of people coming in. Even if there are a lot of people leaving, we still have a supply and demand issue. I tell people all the time, it's always and forever a supply and demand problem. So if you have low supply and high demand, which is what we have in California, we have low supply because we have a limited inventory of housing, but beyond that, we have a hard time building. So we don't have as much development going on as some of these other areas. We also are limited because of space. So if you look at places like Santa Barbara, for instance, Santa Barbara is a coastal community that hits the mountains. And so there are very few places to build. There's physically less space. So even though California is huge, the desirable parts of California are small little areas. We have a lot of coastline, but only a small amount of California is coastline. And so all of these people want to be in these desirable areas, but that's limited in when you look at how much space there actually is. So when you think about, okay, there's limited space, there's low supply, limited building, there's not much building going on, but there's still high demand. People still want to come and move here. There's still a lot of opportunity in California. There's still a lot going on that people are wanting to come here. And so when you have that, you have the low supply, high demand, prices continue to go up. All right, let's keep going and see what else ChatGPT is telling us about why, if everybody's leaving California, this is what we're hearing. Why do we still have increasing prices? Investor and foreign demand. Investment firms and foreign buyers still see California real estate as a long-term asset, keeping demand up in many regions. So we do have a lot of foreign buyers who come in and they buy properties, whether they are like very expensive properties that are beachfront, they'll buy them and hold them just to hold on to, just to park money in. And so because of that, we still have those buyers who have a lot of demand. So that's going to again continue increasing the prices of California properties. The next thing that's on here is limited turnover. Many homeowners are staying put because they have ultra low mortgage rates from 2020 and 2021. This limits the number of homes on the market, driving up prices for the few that are available. We see that all the time. I have people who own their homes and will come and talk to me about, hey, I'm thinking of moving. And then when we talk about how much it might be for them because of interest rates or because of the home prices or whatever it will be, they just say, you know what? The math ain't mathin'. It's not going to work for me. It doesn't make sense for me to sell my current home, which is why we talked last week about the people who are selling are the people who have to sell. We are not in the market where people are just like, you know, this house looks better, so I think I'm going to trade mine in for the one up the road. That's not the market we're in right now. People are selling because they have to sell. And there are plenty of people who have to sell because they are moving out of state, because it has gotten too unaffordable for them here, because they have a job change, because they have a job loss, because they have a change in their family, whatever dynamic. They have kids, their kids went off to college, they got married, they got a divorce, whatever it is, things like that are happening all the time. And so people do need to change their living situation. But the only people who are selling are people who have to sell. And that's really what we're seeing. I am seeing that every day, is that the only people who are selling are people who have to sell. They're really not saying, it just doesn't make sense for them to trade in a 3% interest rate for a 7% interest rate. And right now the interest rates are going down a little bit. So some of the buyers are saying, okay, well, we're used to these higher interest rates, so we're going to make the move. But it's a lot of first-time home buyers or people who are saying, I have to make this move. It's not people who are comfortable with their 2-3% interest rate because it just doesn't make financial sense for them. What's next? Let's see. Okay. So we said limited turnover, high income buyers are still competing in tech hubs and desirable suburbs. High income remote workers or dual income families continue to compete for a limited supply of homes, bidding up sales prices. So we have these high income earners with tech jobs or dual income earners who are able to still afford these home prices. So in my area, I am in a coastal suburb, but not in the hot spots of LA or San Francisco. Still, the average home price is about 800,000, like right around 805. That's for a single person to be able to afford that. That's really challenging. But you bring in a second income, you bring in these high income earners, that all of a sudden becomes a little more affordable. So you still have people, even if these are high prices, you still have people who can afford to pay those prices and who think that the value that California provides is worth it. And so they're still going to come in because they say, yes, it's expensive, but there's a reason it's expensive. So I'm willing to pay these higher prices. And we do see that. We see that all the time. That's why people are still buying and selling in California, is because people are willing to pay these prices because they say it's worth it. It's worth it for the weather. It's worth it for the location and proximity to things. They decide that, yes, it is worth it for them to be in California. I am one of those. I've decided, yes, it's expensive, but it's worth it. The desirability of specific areas. While some are leaving, wealthy buyers are still willing to pay premium prices for homes in coastal or high status neighborhoods. So that's basically what we just said. We have these coastal areas, which are limited proximity wise. So people are willing to pay those high prices. And we, of course, have the higher price neighborhoods like Beverly Hills and, West Hollywood and San Francisco and those areas that all are across the Silicon Valley. Oh, I have a bug in here. They are willing to pay those high prices because of the desirability of these neighborhoods. And even if some of that desirability has gone down, it's still there. So even if a lot of Hollywood is leaving, California is so diversified. We have so much going on that even if one industry completely picks up and leaves, which it's not leaving fully, but even if a vast majority of it leaves, we have so many different industries that it doesn't matter. There's still going to be a lot of people who are coming in because of the desirability of this place. So why are people leaving California? That's my question. Why would you want to leave? People are leaving because of some of the things we've just talked about. High cost of living, housing, gas, groceries, and taxes in California are among the highest in the US. I remember I have family who lives in the Midwest. They live in Chicago. And so this is like, a bustling town that is a big city that I don't know, to me, I've lived in California for my whole life. So I don't even think about the cost of certain things. And I remember when they asked me how much I paid for my car registration, and it was like, I don't know, 200 and something dollars. And they were like, what? I paid like $40. And I thought it was a ridiculous amount. I was like, oh, okay, I see. I see the difference there. So I think for people who are here and have been here for a long time, you just don't see it. It's just how much you pay and that's what it is. And, you don't even think about it. But it's for people who come from the outside, people who are used to paying Midwest prices and then come here, they're like, oh, yikes, that's very expensive for a gallon of milk or for eggs or for whatever. When I hear about gas prices on average being like $2, and I'm like, what? Where? Nowhere in California, nowhere that I drive. And so to me, I just think, if gas prices are under $5, I'm like, woo, let's fill it up. Let's fill up all our cars. So it really just depends on your perspective, right? If my perspective is that this is pretty much all I've known, then it doesn't seem that bad. But if your perspective is, oh my gosh, my family in Tennessee is only paying, $200,000 for a 5-bedroom house. Well, yeah, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow when you come to California, because you're not going to get that here. Now, I will say there are parts of California that you can get that. Like when we talk about lower cost of living and that kind of thing, there are parts of California. I talk about this all the time. My in-laws live in Bakersfield. In Bakersfield, you can get lower cost housing, and it's about 2.5 hours away from everything, but still you're in California. And so, depending on what you want and depending on what your family needs are, that's a great option because you could still get that. But you still have a lot of the other priced items that are higher, like gas and insurance and your car registration. A lot of that stuff is still going to be higher just because you're in California. So it really just depends on what you're wanting. Remote work flexibility. Many tech and white collar workers realized they could keep their salaries but live in lower cost areas after the pandemic normalized remote work. So that's actually a big thing because I know a lot of people who did that. A lot of people were living because they worked here, either in LA, downtown LA, some of these areas that are more populated with people who work and have those higher income. Some of those higher income earners, they went fully remote. And so they had the flexibility to leave. Well, what we're seeing now, I think, is more of those people who are saying return to work. So even if it's return part-time to work, it's really difficult to return part-time to work and not live here, or at least not have a hub where you're able to be here. It can be your secondary residence, but at the same time, if you're going to have a secondary residence, then you're going to need to be paying into the California system anyway. So when you talk about it being expensive in California and it's hard to live in California and all of that kind of stuff, yes, it's true. But even for these remote workers who have left, a lot of them are coming back. Even if it's for a part-time, they're still coming back because of the return to office mandates and all of that. A lot of these companies are saying you have to be in office, even if it is hybrid, even if it's temporary. And it's just really hard to live somewhere else permanently and still be required to be in office a couple times a week or a couple times a month. So a lot of jobs that shifted to fully permanently full-time remote are switching back to hybrid, or even some are switching back to full-time in office. So a lot of that might change, even though that's a reason why a lot of them left. A lot of that might start to change. All right, all right, Chat GPT. What's the next reason why people are moving? So the next reason is the tax burden. The high state income taxes and proposed wealth taxes have motivated some wealthy individuals to relocate to lower tax states. So fortunately for me, or unfortunately, however you look at it, I am not one of those super high net worth individuals who have to worry about like the wealth taxes and all of that. But you do see people like, Elon, I don't even want to say his name on here, but some of those crazies who have left and taken their businesses out of California. But every day you see businesses start up in California because still we have Silicon Valley, where that is the hub of tech and all of that. If there are going to be other main hubs around the country, we are seeing that that's popping up. And I do think that there are more to come. But Silicon Valley is still the biggest, largest. If somebody wants to find a job in the tech industry, especially one of those higher up jobs, it's still going to be in Silicon Valley. It's still going to be in California. And so you're still seeing a lot of people who are needing to stay in California if they have a tech-based job. They can leave and find opportunity elsewhere, but it's going to be they're leaving for this specific job. And if they leave for this specific job, if that job goes away, then they're going to have to find another tech-based job. They're probably coming back to Silicon Valley. Oh, my sister agreed with that. My sister is in the heart of Silicon Valley tech world jobs, and she knows that that is true, is that a lot of people leave, but they're going to have to come back. All right, ChatGPT, why else are people leaving? Quality of life issues. Some cite homelessness, crime, urban congestion, and perceived poor governance as reasons for leaving cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles. I do see some of that. I do see some people who are leaving because they're like, oh my gosh, the homelessness is on the rise. But I also know that homelessness is on the rise everywhere. Like in every big city, you're going to see a lot of homelessness, and you're going to see a lot of it on the streets and on the rise. I was just in Denver a couple months ago. They have the same issue. New York has the same issue. Nashville has the same issue. All of the big cities have similar issues. Now, of course, when you talk about, okay, well, how is it dealt with? Everybody has their own feeling of what is the right way to deal with that. And so that is something that there's a lot of controversy over. And I think that there has not been anybody who has found the right way to do it. There are places that have found better ways to do it. And I think that that's something that California needs to adopt, because we do have such a huge homelessness crisis. But that's something that if you're trying to leave LA because of the homelessness crisis, if you are wanting to go to another big city, you're probably going to find a similar issue. It's not like some other big cities have taken care of that completely. So that's something that I get. I hear that. I know that's an issue. I don't know what the solution is, because I don't know that any big city has really solved that. And I think that that is something that California should be looking into. But the other thing that I think about that particular reason people are leaving is the quality of life, is that I think as you go further from those big cities, you have the suburban areas where you don't have all of those issues, like the congestion and all of the crowdedness, all the homelessness, all of that kind of stuff. but you still have the proximity to be able to get to those big cities. So when we talk about San Francisco or LA or San Diego, places like that, you can go to the secondary and tertiary markets and still have easy access. So even like I was talking about, even Bakersfield, which in my mind is like in the middle of nowhere. I When I started going there more and more, because now I have family there and in-laws, I was kind of shocked to think, really, Bakersfield is pretty centrally located, that it is like 2.5 hours away from everything. The beach, LA, the airports, international travel, San Francisco, like you could get anywhere to Bakersfield, Central Coast, 2.5 hours away. It's pretty crazy that you can do that you can travel all those ways. So do I want to live there? Not really, but I understand the draw. I get that people are saying, hey, I still have access. Now, some of you are going to be like 2.5 hours. I would never drive 2.5 hours for anything. I get that. I'm a driver. I'm a traveler. I would drive 2.5 hours. I do drive 2.5 hours to go to Bakersfield. So I get it. But for those people who are saying, I still want to be in California, but I want to have access to things, you have access to lower priced markets in California where you still have access. Now, there are plenty of suburban areas where it's a much quicker drive and much easier access than having to go 2.5 hours. So you still have a lot of those areas. And as far as the traffic and congestion and all of that goes, yeah, it sucks. There's a lot of it. But I go anywhere and I see the same thing. I mean, like, again, you go to any big city. I just went to Denver and we were driving into Denver and there was traffic at like 10 o'clock in the morning. So I really think that that's something that is fairly short-sighted of a lot of people. It's, I could see if you are coming from Timbuktu and coming to California, yes, I can see how you would say, oh, it's so congested. It's so busy. I hate it. But if you're comparing California to any other big city, I just think you're going to have the same thing and you're not going to have the weather. And I will tell you, that is the number one reason why I'm here and why I stay, is because of the weather. I have all my family here, which is another reason. But realistically, the weather really beats out everything. So ChatGPT is telling me another reason, the final reason why people are leaving, is better family environments elsewhere. That's funny because I just talked about my family being here. Families often leave in search of more affordable housing, better schools, and lower cost of raising kids. You know what? That is fair. It is so expensive out here to raise kids. I don't have to worry about that. My kids are my fur babies and, they're not as expensive as real babies. I used to work in education. I know how expensive just that piece of it is. Our public schools are not great. There are some areas where our public schools are great. I think some of our public schools are getting better with charter schools and things like that, but it's still a lottery, or, it's hard to get in, or you have to live in this specific neighborhood or whatever. So I think that is the most fair argument that I can't speak to because I don't have kids. And I think that I understand people saying there's no way I could raise a family here because it's so expensive. I get that. But I also think that if you wanted to stay in California, you could, because we do have those less expensive places. But you're not going to get like these amazing public schools in the less expensive places. Like, that's just how, that's the reality of it. So I could see that's why I say that's the best argument for leaving, I would say, is because you could go somewhere else. And I don't have kids, so I haven't looked up the public schools in all these areas, but you could go somewhere else, I would imagine, that is much lower cost with much better school ratings, because I do know that is a big problem for us, and in my area in particular. So I know a lot of people choose not to buy in my area because of the schools. So that is something that I know, that there are people who are making choices of where to move because of the schools, and that's fair. All right. The next thing that ChatGPT is telling me is where are Californians moving to? So the top destinations for former Californians include Texas, especially Austin, Dallas, Houston. And the reason is no state income tax and a booming job market. Wow, I cannot read today. My words are not coming out. So I know a lot of people who moved to Texas because of, I guess, those reasons that they just said: booming job markets, and no state income tax. I do know that Texas has very high property taxes. So when you buy a house in Texas, even if it is a lower price point, uh, you may still end up paying the same amount because those property taxes are so high. So you may still end up paying the same amount monthly because those property taxes are so high. So it really just depends. You have to really compare apples to apples and do a break-even analysis if you're looking at it straight because of that. I mean, the other thing that I would say is then you'd have to live in Texas. And I would not want to do that. Visit, sure. Even that. I don't know. They're getting a little extreme for me. Which, I mean, everybody would say that about California too. So, hey, to each his own. The next place is Arizona, Phoenix, Scottsdale. Lower housing costs, dry climate. Yeah, but it's also like 200 degrees, dry climate. But there are also very high-end places in Arizona that have $14 million homes. So there are some much more affordable housing places there, and there are some extremely high. It is interesting to me because I think obviously more bang for your buck. So if you bought something for 14 million in Arizona, it's probably going to be like this huge sprawling mansion, and 14 million in Malibu is going to be like a half acre, still probably a beautiful house, but you're going to be on the beach maybe. So it really depends on what you're looking for. And for me, the beach 100% of the time would be desert. I like going to Palm Springs. I like the desert, Vegas, sure, but I could not live there. The dry climate, it is dry. I would 100% prefer dry over humid. So when we talk about like Texas and all these places, I don't want to be there because it's so humid and hot and gross. But when it comes to like 120 degrees, I mean, where I live by the beach, so my average temperature year round, it doesn't get any colder than like 65 degrees, and it doesn't get any hotter than like 67 degrees. So I have a pretty mild climate. So my bar is pretty high when it comes to the weather. But I understand that is not the typical person's. Okay, so the next place that lots of people go to is Nevada, Las Vegas, Reno, no income tax, and it has a pretty good proximity to California. My sister just moved to Vegas, so a different sister, not the Silicon Valley sister, who is saying, yes, that is funny that we know people who have just moved to the Vegas area, Henderson to be specific. And I think the same thing about that I think about Arizona is like, yes, it has these nicer places, but it's way too hot for me. The thing that I think Vegas has over Arizona, and now there are a couple different lines of thought here for me in particular. But what I think that Vegas has over Arizona is that Vegas, specifically Las Vegas, not Reno, Las Vegas, is that they are booming with businesses moving in, people like moving their headquarters there. There's a lot going on, probably for the same reason, the proximity to LA and all of that kind of stuff. But the problem that I see with Vegas, and it's not, I mean, like, I guess the way you look at it is good and bad. It is just flat land. So you could build and build and build and build and build and build and build. And your housing prices, because we talked about supply and demand, your values never go up. Your values are just staying the same. So you're going to have a lot of people who are able to live there, able to build there, and your housing values are never rising. or rising very slowly. Now, I will say that's probably very similar. That is the same across 98% of the country. That is not the same here because of why we talked about is that like housing prices continue to go up here because there's limited area. There's limited physical space to build on in the desirable parts. Now, like Bakersfield, you could just build and build and build forever. But like in Vegas, you can build and build. And in Arizona, it is different because they have like the, I don't know, mountain ranges. Do they have mountain ranges in Arizona? Whatever. They have their areas that are more specific that are limited geographically to how well and how fast they can build. So when it comes to Vegas, I just think you can build, 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 build. And so I do feel like your home values are not really going up as fast. But I also will caveat that to say Vegas is not my like main area. Yes, and the Grand Canyon. What are you saying? The Grand Canyon is like a desirable thing or is like a location thing? You tell me. Okay, now I lost my train of thought. As far as Vegas and Arizona go, for me, too hot, both of those. Idaho is the next one. Boise, seen as safe, family-friendly, and affordable. Oh, yes, you're saying that the Grand Canyon is in Arizona. You're right. Something that is a tourist attraction. I don't think I'm tracking. You tell me. Okay, so Idaho and specifically Boise, seen as safe, family-friendly, and affordable. I do know of a good amount of people who have moved there or who have looked to move to Boise. And I think that a lot of people who have left are people who have small children. They like want that small family feel, and that is something that they get like Stepford Wives kind of thing in Idaho. But it snows there. So remember, I can't handle extremes. So I can't handle the hot, can't handle the cold. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, you cannot build at the Grand Canyon. You're right. Now I'm tracking. So when you're talking about proximity, I mean like limitations on building and limitations on all that, you cannot build in the Grand Canyon. Okay. I am tracking with you now. And you're so right. So now that's why Arizona has those much, much, much more expensive places. Vegas has expensive places too, but as far as I know, they don't have like the $14-20 million places. I don't know, maybe they do, but I do know that Arizona does. I am probably just like a little rusty on my Las Vegas real estate because people are probably going to be like, what are you talking about? Of course they do. And hey, maybe I'll learn something new. Okay, so Idaho, Boise, I hear that. Florida, lower taxes and more political alignment for some movers. Yep, more politically aligned. That is on my list of places that I will never move and maybe never even visit from here on out because of their political alignments. So, yep, I do hear that. I also think the weather sucks in Florida. I'm sure there are places where it's not as bad, but the weather is horrible. There are hurricanes, there are alligators or crocodiles. Anyway, either way, I do not want those. So yeah, Florida is a no for me, dog. I am not going anywhere near Florida anytime soon. Thank you very much. That's all we'll say about that. But I do know of a lot of people who want to move to Florida, tons of people who want to move to Florida. And I just say, enjoy. I will never visit you, but you can come back and visit me. And then rounding out our list, the places that Californians are moving to, Tennessee, Utah, and North Carolina are also growing in popularity for job and cost reasons. I know of somebody who's moving to Tennessee next month. And I know a lot of people who have bought investment property in North Carolina. So I do know that those are popular places. Utah, I actually have not heard very many people moving to Utah. So I don't know, maybe those people just don't talk to me very much, but I have heard a lot of people, I know people all the time want to move to Tennessee because I think Tennessee's They either have no property tax or no income tax. I can't remember which one, but it's the same as Florida, whatever Florida has. Anyway, so Tennessee is one of those where people move because of the tax stuff and politically charged reasons, and because they still have kind of like they have a metropolis area, but they are still they have a lot of affordable places in Nashville, Tennessee. And I think their weather is better. I think it's really humid and gross, but I don't think they have as many like natural disasters, but also could be wrong. You know how they say, like, oh, Americans are the worst with world geography and Californians are the worst with any kind of geography? That is very true of me, unfortunately. I barely know California. So when we try and talk about these other places, I have like a very limited knowledge and an understanding about that, unless I have dug into it I got some wild hair to dig into it for some reason. But otherwise, no. I know nothing. It's so sad, actually. Okay, so all in all, let's wrap this up. I'm staying in California, but we have learned why ChatGPT is telling us why people are leaving, but we also are realizing why home prices are still continuing to go up in California. It's just because even though people are leaving, we don't have enough building going on. We don't have enough space, buildable space where people want to be, desirable areas, because they're limited geographically with physical space. And we know that people still want to be here. And there are enough buyers who are buying that are keeping those housing prices high. So there you go. Thanks for joining me. I will be here next week, Thursday at 3, and I'll be live. You can chit chat with me in the chat, or and I'm live on YouTube and on Instagram, so you can join me either place. If you want to see me sharing my screen, that's on YouTube Live. And of course, for real estate agents, I'm here with you live every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m., where we talk about trainings to help you build your business. So I will see you next Tuesday or next Thursday. Bye.